Perhaps I should add, it would be nice if they knew something about their own religious story as well, but at least that you understand. I mean, a thing which made me, this was all about history, but I did get a degree in history, and after that I went, fairly soon afterwards, to India, and went to the Red Fort where there was a Sonnet Lumiere. And there they were talking about all these Mughal emperors, Akbar and Aurangzeb. I haven't heard of them, you know. I suppose, and it made me realise, I think I'd done medieval European history, and that was what, because, well, I mean, Oxford, I was at a different university. Oxford, I think, modern history still ends about 1850. So, so it's, you know, how isolated we are. And unless we know a little bit about each other's traditions, I mean, clearly, I was talking yesterday at a meeting about diversity. It was a particular big company was having a diversity week, and we were sort of talking about religion. Well, one or two of them have been aware that some people eat different foods and don't eat all foods. But getting a little bit beyond that, I mean, I had one person who said to me, he'd always wondered about sort of the different gods. And I said, well, I think there's only one God. And that seemed to astonish him. Well, maybe very many people in the court of heaven, but a sort of monotheism. Anyhow, so you get the point. So there's that desire, I think, that if we are to live together, we will be enriched. Because if it's only a sort of superficial mixing, then we can have polite conversation about the weather and probably about MPs' expenses, and that's about as far as you get. But if we're really going to share together, then I think it's very important that we learn about each other. I think that, well, there's a couple of other points. I mean, how did I choose? Now, some people chose themselves, if you see what I mean. But, I mean, the founders of the world religions, obviously. Some are really representatives. I mean, I wanted to have some reference to Aboriginals in Australia, and through a friend in Australia was introduced to a very interesting book about a person called Patrick Dodson, who, and his life history gave me a chance to say something about Aboriginal culture. Shintoism, again, is something of a sort of problem because they're not identified leaders, but so some of them are representative, and also whether they had a movement developed from their teaching, and also if they were sort of known beyond their own tradition. I mean, one of the things I find fascinating is the response of people, Buddhists, Hindus and others, say to the figure of Jesus, that there are people, well, I suppose one would say St. Francis, again, appeals beyond those, or Mahatma Gandhi, who, well, his religious upbringing was mixed, I know, anyhow, but he is a figure somehow who transcends the particularity. And just for, I mean, there are one or two figures from the 20th century, such as Gandhi and the Dalai Lama. Obviously, one then begins to think like people like the Reverend Moon, perhaps Sai Baba, the Brahma Kumaris daddies, and I don't think I have the energy to do it. But one imagines almost a book about 100 people in the 20th century, because it has actually been a fascinating period in the religious history and development. And it seems to me so many of the, well, I was going to use the word unconventional movements or new movements or whatever, have all had this sense of the coming together and the unity. I mean, one thinks of the Baha'is, obviously also of Unification Church, and in many other groups, Sai Baba, is moving, affirming one's own identity, but moving beyond it in the sense that as the world becomes geographically and technologically one, then, as Dr. Roger Christian said in the 1930s, it needs to become spiritually one. So that's really, just one other point, sorry. I suppose it has become evident when you read the book, but my real interest is in much more in the mystical and in the spiritual. And those are the people who I'm dealing with. It's not a history of religion. It's a history of spirituality. And it wasn't until I got to the end that I realised there's only one pope in it. Anyhow, thank you very much, and I very much look forward to other people's comments.